This is Jordan Grace, and you're listening to the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
BWB, this is One Nation Radio. You better get it right. Rich Latta, James Boyd came to give them life. The Blackest Wrestling Podcast has come to kick all ass and drop it 6 feet if they kicking trash. Word, let me welcome y'all to something different. And if you dig it, man, you should let some friends listen. We be getting it in, this on the regular dude. Ravish and flow, but this shit rude. See, James don't rap, so I had to break it down. The whole network, man, we coming for the crown. Raps in the columns, I keep them both covered. Making the beats too, so the listeners can bump it. Hit us with the rating, yeah, I'm saying it's a 5. Before you hit it, talk, bob your head side to side. It's One Nation Radio, and this is the beginning. It's Rich, and I'm here with James. It's time to listen to One Nation.
We got to unleash the power of the pyramid.
This is Mike Sempervive from WrestlingObserver.com. Check me out on Wrestling Observer Live every day. And also check out your boys, Rich and James, on One Nation Radio.
This is Kenny Omega. We're listening to One Nation Radio. Check it out, guys. These guys know what's up. Big Kenny Omega fans, and that's all that counts to me. Goodbye and good night. Bang.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to One Nation Radio. I'm James Boyd. This is a solo show. Rich is not with us this week. He is on a well-deserved, well-earned vacation. I don't know if he's calling it a honeymoon or if he's calling it just a getaway. But either way, I'm happy for him. He got married over the weekend. I had the honor and privilege of being his best man for the ceremony. It was a small event, pretty much just close families and friends. Due to coronavirus, it's an outdoor wedding at a park. Was I a little nervous given that I've been pretty much just a recluse and been boxed in during the pandemic over the past few months? Absolutely. But it's Rich and it's Catherine. I love them to death, and I do pretty much anything for them. So I was with it, including the bachelor party. But enough about me. Back to them. They had been together since about either late 2011 or early 2012, and they've been together the whole time. And it's been a lot of love there, and I'm glad that this is happening. I said during my best man speech that I had bullet points that kind of pulled out of my ass, but still worked somehow. Lucky me. But I said that I think earlier on I kind of knew that this was going to happen one day, that they were going to get married. So I'm happy that I was right. One thing One Nation Radio is about is being right. So but enough about that. Just a lot of love there and a great relationship, and I just hope the best for both of them. And I hope that Rich is not going overboard with the hotel chair. He sent us a picture of a hotel chair. If you listen to Joe Lanz and Voice of Wrestling, you already know what that is. If you don't, I'm sorry, I'm not going to fill you in. You're just going to have to guess it yourself. I'm pretty sure you're good at context clues. But anyway, over the weekend, the Los Angeles Lakers won the NBA championship. I'm surprised that Rich didn't hit me up to get 15 minutes away to do a segment with me where he could talk a bunch of shit. So I'm assuming he's going to be back next week so he can talk his own brand of shit as a diehard Laker fan. But for me, I just want to say, it was a great finals that I thought was kind of lopsided. I think the Miami Heat had a lot of heart. I think that Jimmy Butler in Game 5 had a fantastic all-time game. I think it was 35-point, triple-double. One of the better finals games you'll ever see. The ending stretch where him and LeBron are basically going bucket to bucket like it's a damn and one game. And ultimately he ends up winning that game, the Heat, and to force a Game 6, which basically caused Frank Vogel to pull the lever. And the lever was take out Dwight Howard. They were already not playing JaVale McGee, and basically decided to go with LeBron at power forward, Anthony Davis at center. Their version of the death lineup that a lot of us NBA hardcore fans were expecting them to unleash for most of the postseason, but never really needed to do so until now. And they promptly beat the living crap out of the Heat, and it was no longer a series of grittiness and whatever else. It was just they play small ball better than everybody else. Sorry, Bam Adebayo. Sorry, Jimmy Butler. Sorry, Tyler Hero. But after that point, there was no weakness to attack on that Laker defense, and it was a wrap from there. And they got out. They got a lot of deflections, and you get a lot of deflection on a LeBron James team is going to lead to just transition buckets and dunks and highlight reel stuff, and that's what they got. And it was over before halftime. I think they had I think at some points they got to over 30-point lead. I think got to 36 at some point. It was pretty much just a debacle. But yeah, to go from that, it was a crazy year. The bubble was a smashing success. It's amazing how you look at all the sports around the world, all around this country actually, and look at the number of outbreaks from football and baseball and the like in college football, and then you look at places that actually did decide to do social distancing and do a bubble, whether it was the WNBA with the women's bubble, the NBA with the bubble, or hockey, no COVID positives. It's just more proof that, like, on a macro scale or even on a control, that if you isolate, socially distance, wear a fucking mask, that you can put a curve on this if you were to ramp this up to scale. And I mean, we didn't need just major American sports to prove that. You can look at the rest of the Western world. You look at the outbreaks numbers per capita in other developed countries, other Western countries compared to us, and we are a shit show. But it is what it is, I guess. But just want to say congratulations to the NBA and the WNBA and hockey for, in the face of adversity of trying to get this TV money for everybody to be able to continue the future of their leagues respectively. They went out there and did it, and they did it in a safe way ultimately. And you look at these NBA teams all around, or these NFL teams all around, and you don't know what the hell is going to happen. Games are getting postponed to the next week. Games are getting moved to extra Monday Night Football, extra Thursday night games. You don't know what's going to happen. I believe the Tennessee Titans have had multiple games postponed already, and it's just their opponents that are getting positive tests. It's not even them necessarily. So it's really a wild time in the world of major American sports. But I think it's enough talk about the Lakers and Laker exceptionalism. I'm sure Rich will have plenty of that for next week, but I think it's now time to talk about the stars on the Lakers. Anthony Davis has won his first NBA title. It was a fun moment for me as a guy that literally at first time I saw him in Kentucky, I thought this dude was just like rich man's John Henson in North Carolina. He was College Player of the Year. And it's so weird. It's also a reason why I do not love college basketball the same way I used to, where you just look at all these guys, whether it was someone like a Draymond Green, a Anthony Davis, a Karl Anthony Towns, and you see Julius Randle, and you see the kind of skill that they have in the college game, and then you translate it to the NBA, and you see their game just blossom, and they have all this other stuff, and you're like, why the hell didn't this coach use this in college and destroy these teams? Kentucky, they won their national championship in 2012, Anthony Davis' freshman year, and he was college player of the year. But he was, from the time you see him in the NBA, you're just like, he's so much more than what you even thought as just a rim run, lob guy, and a shot blocker and a great defensive player. Like, you saw so much of his game as a person that could put the ball down, as somebody that could shoot face up. You could put it at the elbow, you could put on the block, and it was so tantalizing to see all the skills he had. And I think, he was injured early on, but I think in his first healthy year, I just knew it's like, this is going to be a futuristic generational talent, someone that was going to be a future MVP candidate. He's finished top 3 in MVP voting before. There's going to be a bunch more now that he's 27. He's on the Lakers. And, you know, he's one of the best defensive players in the league. He might be the most versatile defender in the entire league right now at this point. The sky's the limit for him. And he's paired up with a person that's perfect for him in having, you know, such a great facilitator in LeBron. And for someone like AD, you need a facilitator like him, and they kind of a perfect match. It's crazy that LeBron has found like his basketball soulmate at age 35 after 17 years when he's had great teammates like Dwayne Wade, like Chris Bosh, like Kevin Love, like Kyrie Irving. And they're just a matchup nightmare. They're such a matchup nightmare that they've won the NBA Finals, and quite frankly, they rarely did use two-man game. They rarely went to the pick and roll. They rarely went to pick and pop between them. And you know, I think that's something that they feel like they can pull out on any rainy day against a tougher matchup. And quite frankly, they ran through this tournament. But I think in the future, when they eventually meet the Warriors in the future, or they run into the Nets possibly next year, or maybe the Nuggets provide a tougher challenge next year because of their age and their trajectory. I think that they're going to use that, and it's going to be very similar to the 2017 Finals when the Warriors didn't use any Steph and KD pick and roll, and then they unleashed on the Cavs, and it was like, oh my God, this is the greatest offensive basketball between two teams I've ever seen in my life. That was a crazy finals. Like, the Cavs were out here scoring 115 and still getting their doors blown off. That's the level of excellence of those finals, with that level of talent, with Draymond and Clay and Steph and Durant and Livingston and Iguodala and Kevin Love and LeBron and Kyrie and shooters all around on the Cavs. It was just fantastic. Just from as a person that doesn't watch basketball from a rooting standpoint, because I don't have a fan, I don't have a team interest or whatever else, like, that was just bliss to watch. Just the highest level of basketball. I think that's the highest level of basketball we'll ever see offensively in an NBA Finals. I think in my lifetime. I hope I'm wrong. I like to see something better, but that's the best it's going to get that I can think of. I can't imagine what the hell basketball's going to look like, unless it's just a million threes and no twos whatsoever in the future, and there's 5 Steph Currys on the team in the future. In basketball, it looks totally different, right? But anyway, Anthony Davis is a fantastic player, generational player, and this isn't over. I think I was talking to my brother Daniel and explained to him, like, I remember when I said to him in the middle of the West Conference Finals, with just the offensive game that is on display from Anthony Davis, as far as his face-up game, his shooting ability, long twos, threes, and just the rate that he was just making shots at, is like, it's only a matter of time before he starts coming off of pin downs, and he's going to look less like, you know, Kevin Garnett crossed with David Robinson, and more like Kevin Garnett crossed with Kevin Durant. And it's going to be interesting to see, you know, what happens in the future, how his game unfolds, but it's going to be a wild ride, because given what the Warriors and the Miami Heat from the LeBron era and the Bosh era and the Wade era, and what, you know, the depth lineup from the Warriors did to the league, to where they've rendered the big man extinct, the kind of versatility that Anthony Davis holds, he's just going to dominate this league going forward. Like, and now he has more confidence. He was already somebody that from day one stepped in as an immediate impact playoff performer, and that shined through in this postseason. And now that he has the confidence, like, he may become the best player in the world eventually. Like, we always talked about whether it was Kevin Durant that was going to, like, officially supplant LeBron, or whether it was going to be Giannis or Kawhi, Steph Curry at different times. It looked like that same, and so has Durant. But, like, given the age range and, like, the perfect time for the overlapping as LeBron's on the downturn on his career, his prime, his apex, it just might end up being it just may end up being Anthony Davis of all people, which is crazy because they're on the same damn team and they just are such a perfect blend. If there's ever any bit of shooting around them, they're just going to be an elite offense in the playoffs. And unless another super team gets built or whatever else, this is like a team that can compete next year, and maybe even further than that. But hats off to the Lakers, hats off to AD. But last person I want to bring up, of course, LeBron James, a person I now think is officially the clear-cut second best basketball player in the world. I don't know if most people already been there as far as, his multiple runs through the finals. 2018 was such a special playoff run, one of the greatest playoff runs ever. The people have already been there for two, but for me, I kind of put it as, it's era versus era. I can't really compare the eras, but I can kind of look at accolades across different eras and kind of gauge somebody's dominance. And for me, he's there now. He's there at number 2. I want to say after the 2016 finals when he beat the 73-win Warriors team, I had him at 3 or 4. Probably had him at 3. Because I just have such respect for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's somebody that is historically given the short thrift as one of the greatest of all time. For his person to have 6 MVPs, 6 championships, multiple finals MVPs, finals MVPs like 15 years apart. I feel like he's given really short shrift. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact of his persona, in his political leanings as a kid in the league and growing up at given that time. I think a lot of that is stuff that is, unfairly thrown upon him, especially in retrospect because, Kareem was right about a lot of this stuff. But anyway, I think that, with due respect, it's really hard to put somebody over Kareem because Kareem, regardless of if you're a Jordan person, a Russell person, if the argument is who has the greatest career of all time, it's Kareem, and then it's everybody else. LeBron is at the point now to where, barring some type of Kobe-like Achilles injury, something unforeseen anyway, he's probably going to be the all-time point scorer as a person that a lot of people believe his best skill is, facilitating and not actually scoring. And, he's already the all-time leader for non-guards and assists per game. He's just going to fill up this career, or just fill up the stat sheet of accolades and stuff over the years. I think he's on 2.5 years behind in the points at a time where he's only, he'll be 36 by the end of next season. Like, he's way ahead of schedule to catch Kareem in that regard. So, he did it again. Like, I think for people to get a grasp of how incredible LeBron has been over his career, I just want to just talk about this Bill Simmons stat. Bill Simmons has constructed something from his book of basketball that came out 2009. I think he did a paperback edition, the updated the year after in 2010 that I have, and it's called the 42 Point Club. And it's pretty much as follows. You can pretty much tell who had a kick-ass summer in every playoffs since about probably the merger, let's like 77 or whatever else it was, by adding up their average points, rebounds, and assists as a total. And if they played 13 games of playoff basketball and that number equals over 42, you're talking about pretty much every kick-ass playoff run. Jordan did it 6 times. Kobe Bryant did it 1 time in 2001. Notably with Shaq, he's one of the only pairs of teammates to ever do it. Unfortunately, because of the foul trouble game that AD had in Game 3, I believe, he ended up just barely missing out. But Jordan's did it 6 times. Kobe's done it once. I believe Westbrook's done it twice. Harden's never done it. Steph has never done it. KD's done it once. coincidentally, in the same year that Westbrook did it one time, did it as well, and they still got bounced by the 14 Spurs. Let you know that's an all-time great team. Like, that ass whooping they put on the Heat in 14 was well deserved. That was a great team. But yeah, LeBron has done it 9 times, which is just staggering. Like, I'm looking at the list of other people that have done it. Like, Shaq's done it 4 times. Larry Bird's only done it 4 times. Moses Malone did it twice. Magic's only done it twice. Karl Malone, Mailman's only done it twice. Tim Duncan's only done it twice. Kareem's only done it once. Barkley did it once. Iverson did it once. KG did it once. Blake Griffin, of all people, did it once in 2015. Like, that's quiet as kept. He was great that postseason until they got bounced by the Rockets. But yeah, just to put you in perspective, the kind of consistent force that LeBron has been in the playoffs and over his career, that's where he is. He's Mr. Longevity. 17 years, aside from a 2-week vacation in the 2015 season and his groin tear last season, he's been a gamer. He's going to give you 70 plus games every year. It's truly a marvel. Like, when I was a freshman, he was a senior in high school, and I thought about all the things he could possibly be. I never thought that he would become the second greatest basketball player of all time. I thought he'd be great, but I didn't think he'd be all this. And to see like that he has like probably the greatest prime of all time in pretty much any major sport is just startling. But we'll see what the future holds for him. He has a great teammate in Anthony Davis, as I said. They have some moves to make. Some people need to bring back, and some people they may need to move along to get in more shooting, but they can, with that defense that they played, and that defense that they play is so amazing and so stifling that it's going to be hard to keep that sustained for the next number of years, for a multiple year run. But if they can add more shooting to their team, given the landscape of the league, there's no, Durant of the Warriors type of team anymore. The Warriors, when they come back next year, they will not have the kind of depth that they've had over the years. It's gonna be interesting to see. It's gonna be a fun time next year. Like, hopefully, we'll figure out whenever the season starts next year. The initial talks were something like Christmas. I can't imagine that. There have been people that I follow, like Bill Simmons and Russillo, that believe it won't start till maybe even March. But whenever it does, hopefully, we'll be in a different place in the country to where it'll be responsible to actually have fans. And if not, then maybe we don't deserve to have an NBA season, right? But yeah, just shout out to AD and Lakers and Laker Nation and everything. It was a long, rough ride. I was talking to Rich about how crazy it was after Dwight left and Kobe blew out his Achilles, and how the franchise was down for so long, and like the turmoil between the Bus siblings and everything, and like, it's crazy. Like, any other franchise with that kind of stuff that happened over those 6 years, they would have no future. They would be out here looking like the Bulls or looking like Detroit or something. But it's the Lakers. It means something. It just means something different. So, in the words of Rich, Laker exceptionalism is not dead. But I think it's time to talk about pro wrestling, and I'm going to start with the best wrestling I saw all of last week. So, Rich is not with me. I have no co-host, so I, myself, will tell myself to hit the music! So, last weekend, October 3rd, Stardom had its second or biggest show in its entire 9.5-year history. They had a show at the Yokohama Budokan, a newer facility that seats about 4,000 people. Because of social distancing, they were only allowed to let in a certain percentage. They ended up with 1,000 people there. I got to tell you, like, the layout of it reminded me a lot of watching New Japan shows. It reminded me a lot of like a Sumo Hall show or a Budokan Hall show, as far as the railing and everything else. But it was put up on Stardom World. It was actually sold as a pay-per-view in Japan. I have no idea whether or not it was available as an online pay-per-view for foreigners, but I'm just happy that after it was on pay-per-view, given how there are, blackout periods before you can actually, redistribute it on a different platform, that, it was up by, I believe, Wednesday, after it happened on Saturday. So I actually watched this right before Dynamite, and I got to tell you, for those that listen to Wrestling Observer Live and listen to Dave Meltzer go on and on about watching the pitfalls of watching New Japan Pro Wrestling before watching an American show, got to tell you, I've always thought he was right about that, and that also applies to Stardom on this show, because this show was one of the 10 best shows I've seen this year in professional wrestling all around the world. I'll probably even say top 8. Fantastic show from everywhere. Great performances. The first match is the high-speed title match between 18-year-old, or recently turned 18, Azumi, the high-speed champion, versus Starlight Kid, as Rich calls, like, the greatest babyface in the world. Historical rivals been at it since they first met, so there's been like a 6-year rivalry, 5-year rivalry going on between them, and they always have great exchanges and great matches, and I believe this was their best match they've ever had, and the ones that I've seen especially. It was a typical high-speed battle. Starts out with a lot of rope running, a lot of twists and turns, a lot of near falls. Ultimately, Azumi ends up is able to pick off her Starlight Kid's left arm and goes to work on it. Starlight Kid fights back from underneath. There's a point where she ends up actually getting her signature code red. That's her big finish that she almost never hits. She ends up hitting it on Azumi, and Azumi ends up getting positioned where she's close to the ropes, and she ends up getting stacked up high on her shoulders in a Liger Bomb pinning situation, stacked up high. And instead of kicking out, she actually got her feet on the bottom rope. It was a really cool look. Showed signs of thought and desperation. There's also a spot later where Azumi's kicking Starlight Kid's ass, and Starlight Kid ends up getting thrown over the top rope, and she's on the apron, and Azumi comes charging after her, and Starlight Kid gets up on the bottom rope and reaches over, hits with a huge forearm, and then grabs her, and while she's on the apron, actually hits like the Randy Orton hanging DDT, except she grabs her and she's on the apron, so she basically drops her and drops off the apron at the same time to the floor while DDTing Azumi's head right on the apron. It's brutal. There was also, at that point in time, I think she followed that up with a top rope to floor dive. And then from there was a bunch of, their classic back and forths of, flips and near falls and from Azumi, head kicks, of course. Azumi continued going back to that arm for multiple submission near falls until ultimately she ends up getting her with this super cool looking move that is like she ends up on the top rope, seated on the top rope with an opponent either charging her or she stops them, and then she basically grabs one of the arms and then hooks one of her legs around the back of her opponent's neck, and then she jumps off the rope for like basically like a freaking leg drop. And then she turns it into a Rings of Saturn looking thing with her legs, and it's just brutal. And ultimately, Starlight Kid tapped out. It's a great match. It's a great opener. I gave it 4 stars. A lot of people like it more than that, but I would say definitely check it out. It's actually for those that don't have Stardom World, if you just want to get a taste of what can happen and what they do. They actually have that show or that match up on Stardom, Stardom's YouTube. I'll actually throw the link in the description below. And then from there, they end up moving on to other matches on the card that aren't as good. They end up debuting Mina Shirakawa, former Tokyo Joshi Pro wrestler, against Hanan, their 15-year-old. And she quickly dispatches of her. It wasn't much of a match. It was just to show you the surprise of we have this woman that is now moved over. This is more plunder and looting of talent from Stardom from the rest of the Joshi world. It's cool to see her. It actually is, if I remember correctly, when we last had Zach on the show, we were talking about potential people that would be the surprises, and her name was one of the people. And also, we were kind of 2 for 2 because the person that ended up being mentioned as someone that could possibly be the next member of Donna Del Monte as the 5th member ended up actually being Natsumi Maki. She goes by Natsupoi, so I don't know if that's just a trademark thing or whatever else, but she is there, and she is in the thug section of Donna Del Mondo while twirling a baton and smiling down to the ring. It's just a weird juxtaposition of Shuri, former MMA fighter, former UFC Japan ass kicker, the giant of Himeka, and this smiling baby face now dressed in what is, I guess, the traditional black and red and silver of Donna Del Mondo, just amongst all those killers. But the next match after that was a tag match with Riho and Saya Ida, Star's best jobber. She's one of the best jobbers in wrestling, versus Natsumira and Yuna Manase. It was an 8-minute match. It was okay. It was fun. Natsu's a comedy wrestler, wrestling around Riho. Her and Riho have had a thing for a while now where Natsu does a Bronco Buster spot where she humps the wrestler's faces in the corner, kind of similar to the stink face, but from the front part. You can visually understand what I mean. And she has been dying for months and months and months to hit the Bronco Buster on Riho, but Riho has always narrowly escaped. So that was what the match is based around, the comedy of whether or not what I basically call 27-year-old hot Yano can hunch the face of Riho. So enjoy if that's what you're into. But yeah, next match was Def Yamasan versus the debuting surprise of Natsumi Maki, now named as Natsupoi. They had a high-speed match. Very fun, short match, not as nearly as good as Azumi and Starlight Kid. It was a simple match. It was a simple, fun match with high-speed spots. The only other time I had actually really seen Natsu for an extended period of time was in a match in on the January 4 Tokyo Joshi Pro, which is kind of their WrestleMania, and she wrestled Sari, who is set to go to WWE whenever the pandemic goes away, but was a top freelancer, maybe still is a top freelancer in Japan. And I thought of her more of a striker in that match, but she's a high-speed wrestler. She hits the rope. She's running around. She has cool flip spots. And she ends up beating Def Yamasan. And after the match, she says that she is a high-speed wrestler, and I believe she wants a high-speed title shot. Next match after that, we end up getting B. Priestley versus Momo Watanabe for the SWA belt. The SWA belt is basically the foreigner belt. I believe the rules of it is if you're the champion, you can only wrestle challengers that are from a country different from yours. So it makes sense for her be in this time of the pandemic to be the champion so she can wrestle other domestic talents. Because it's gonna be a bitch to try to bring in somebody from the U.S. Right? I don't think anybody's coming over to for 2 weeks to sit here and then go wrestle and then go get dispatched back to America. But they end up having a great match. It's funny because it actually pays off a storyline from when back in January, B turned on Momo after she lost her title challenge against Mayu and hit her with a Kamigoye and moved on to Oedo Tai. And ever since then, she's been in Oedo Tai, and they never had a match. They always had tags or whatever else, and, Momo's kind of got her revenge here and there by, pinning her in matches, but they never had a final resolution until now, and it's a really good match. They end up wrestling around, and Momo starts kicking her ass with stiff kicks, and then they end up on the apron, and Momo keeps sending her back with mid kicks and sends her closer to a ring post, and then she sets up for a big finishing kick, and B ducks, and she ends up hitting her shin and her ankle with her right ankle and leg into the ring post, and then B goes to work just bending down that leg, and in a very Arisa Hoshiki-like fashion, after wearing that leg down, Momo jumped up and started running around, which annoyed the shit out of me, but match just continued on, and in much similar to the B in Arisa match from, I believe that was either January or February, their white title match, B forgot which leg she had worked on and ended up slapping on a leg bar, a knee bar onto the left leg, which was a healthy leg, and then it just turned into a thing where she's working over both legs. But it was a lot of great wrestling in that match, a lot of crazy sequences. There was a sequence where they're both on the floor going for encountering each other's small packages and cradles for near falls, and then they both end up on their feet, and B ends up slipping underneath Momo and fighting for a backslide, and Momo's fighting the backslide, and then ultimately she gives into it, and as B finally gets her shoulders on the mat, Momo rolls through, and like the story of the betrayal back in January, she has wrist control, both wrists, and she just comes through and just fucking lays out B with a Kamigoye. It was fantastic. But there was also a spot where Momo was trying to give her multiple times, I think it happened twice, where Momo was insistent on trying to give B a B driver, which is basically like a backpack tombstone, basically, where instead of you drop them from the front, like you have them basically lifted on your back and you drop them from behind. Where in B, both times they slid off her back, kind of in a Seth Rollins style, and either try for her Japanese Ultra Cyclone suplex, where you're in a backpack, electric chair position, and you grab the arms and in a straight jacket position, and you just fall back. And Momo escaped the first time with a victory roll. I think she victory rolled up and then hit it with a huge head kick, and then the second time, B, in a something I think you guys will find familiar, hit her with the Shiki Nandos. I wonder where she got that influence from, but ultimately, the match ends where B ends up hitting her with the Japanese Ultra Cyclone suplex, and she's the new SWA champion. I ended up giving that match 3 3/4. Really enjoyed the match, but it just was not as good as the opener. It just wasn't. But the next match after that ended up being a loser has to disband match between Oedo Tai, Saiki Kashima, and Natsuko Tora versus TCS's Jungle Kiona and Konami. Not going to spend much time on this match. This match was mostly just an angle. That's the thing that matters. Match was okay. It was a no DQ match. There's one spot I'll mention. Jungle ends up getting a table in the ring, and they set it up, and she ends up power driving Natsuko through the table. Ultimately, the end of the match is where Jungle's in the match fighting her ass off throughout, and Konami's making saves. While so mostly it started out brawling around the ring, and ultimately ends up with one-on-one in the ring as people on the outside doing plunder stuff and then making saves. So the match finishes where Saki ends up getting a chair, a steel chair, and she's going to hit Jungle with it. She actually does hit Jungle with it, and she's going to finish her. And then Konami comes in and basically does a Minoru Suzuki like chair duel with wielding chairs, and then ultimately turns around, waits till Jungle's up on her feet, turns around and betrays her, breaks the fucking table or the chair over her head, and then that allows Saki to hit her crucifix pin for the win. Jungle is shocked and surprised. I'm shocked and surprised and also angered because this is a thing they do in Stardom. Not often, but whenever they do a betrayal in a tag match, they will let the person just wrestle the match as normal, just like you expect, taking damage, making saves for the person instead of just fucking them because they obviously are going to fuck them. And then at the last moment, somebody betrays them after they've wrestled through a whole match and got their ass whooped by the opposing team and then joins the other team. It's the dumbest shit. It happened actually with Saki at the beginning of this year, where Saki is tagging with Mayu, and then after going through a match, getting her ass whooped, making saves for Mayu, she decides to screw her and ends up joining Oedo Tai. Whatever. I think it's dumb. They also did this when in the 2016 Tag League where Io turned on Mayu, but at least Io got a chance to cut a promo and explain why in the middle of the match she decided to turn on her. That at least you can make it make some sense. The other ones is just, nah, we're gonna slap your head by doing something that nobody would actually do if you're going to turn on somebody. If you're going to turn on somebody, you do the Sting in Flair where the babyface in the ring wrestling their ass off, and then the heel finally gets the hot tag, and then the heel turns while taking no damage, because why the hell would you guys slap somebody's head in that kind of way to screw them? You would just screw them over and get it over with. Anyway, end of the match, Konami cuts a promo saying she's through with Jungle, through with TCS. She wants to join Oedo Tai. She's in Oedo Tai now. Jungle has some of the saddest betrayal face you'll ever see. I did not see at the time when, because I was not watching at the time, when Momo Watanabe left the Stardom Army, which is now the proto version of Stars, to join Queen's Quest, when Jungle and Momo were a tag team. But I felt it, and I felt so sad for Jungle. Jungle is always so good at being such a believable babyface to root for, get behind, but she always loses, and that's just the MO. That's what she does. Jungle will lose, and she will be devastated, and you will feel devastated for her. That is the name of the game. And she looked like somebody. She lost a family member. She lost a friend, and obviously, this is long form storytelling. Konami and Jungle were a tag team. They were tag team champions last year. They were great. They were my favorite tag teams in the world last year. They had a great relationship. A lot of it was about not letting each other down, and I felt like they were the best part of TCS while being around Hannah at the time when Hannah had all the charisma in the world, but she needed people in the ring to help back her up at times, because she was very good at brawling, but as far as the technical aspect of carrying through matches, not so much. And I thought that all three of them fed off each other so well, and especially that tag team. And they're done, they're through, and Jungle just breaks down into tears, just shouts out. If you've ever seen the Hiromu after Evil betrayed Naito at the final of New Japan Cup, I believe, or after, actually I take it back, after he won the title and he just screaming up into the sky like a crazed person. This was a less ridiculous version of that, but she screamed just like the pain of betrayal. It was just gutting. But that's not the worst thing that happened to her this weekend, and we'll get back to that later. Next match after that was one thing I wanted to double back to is after Konami left out the ring, they had the other members of TCS ringside. Now, it is Rena. Rena is a 12-year-old girl who dressed like Hannah's mini-me and has still stayed in that gear even after Hannah's passing. You had Def Yamasan, like we mentioned, comedy wrestler, high-speed wrestler, and Roka, who is back to wrestling now. She was away for a while. They have a thing with schooling to where they have to do a bunch of stuff to get to high school, so she wasn't around for the last year or so. But Jungle cuts a promo to all of them saying, I can't, it wasn't translated this time, it'll be up eventually, but I'm assuming it's something along the lines of, I'm sorry I failed you, and Rena walks off crying, and that was the end of it. But next match of that was the tag team title match, Utami and Big Saya versus Micah and Himeka. It's kind of like an epilogue of the Grand Prix final with Himeka on one side and Utami on the other. And they had a good match. I did not like this match as much as most people did. I thought it was a good match. I didn't think it was a great match. I didn't actually even give it 3.5. It's not on my recommended match list of the year so far. But the match, they worked hard. I just didn't feel it. But ultimately, the match ends where Big Saya, who it's kind of funny because after last week where Isaiah Cassidy against Jericho did a lot of flying, or was that 2 weeks? I can't remember. Did a lot of flying, and none of it looked particularly good, and some of it looked like, he could end up injuring himself or others. Saya Kamitani decided to raise the stakes by doing her usual aerial stuff that doesn't really look that consistent or good that often, but she can pull it off. And she's only been wrestling for about 14 months, even with this pandemic, so you expect it, giving her some of the things she can already do, you expect it to round into shape over the next few years. But she actually finishes this match with a Phoenix Splash, which I was not expecting her to pull that one out the bag. When she went to the top row, I'm thinking, okay, moonsault. No, Phoenix Splash. And she didn't land it smoothly, like she didn't land it like flush on I believe it was Micah. She didn't land on Micah's chest, she landed on more of the legs, but good enough. It was a if she's gonna pull that out, like, she has a bright future. I already thought she did, but wow. I just worry about her when it comes to the actual technical wrestling aspect. She can sell her ass off. She's very springy. She also bumps very well. She's good at selling, but I worry. But they're behind her, and they're giving enough trust to do that kind of thing, because last person they had that kind of free range to do a spectacular move like that was Hazuki, when she was doing the Pac Black Arrow, and they gave her 2 opportunities. And the first time she almost killed herself. The second time she almost killed Starlight Kid by landing directly on her head, and she never used it again. So as long as Big Saya stays consistent with that, and doesn't kill anybody or herself with it, that's going to be her move. And gotta tell you, there's not that much like spectacular flying in Joshi, so for finishers or that sort of thing. So that would definitely help her stand out amongst the pack. So next match after that was the white belt match. This is Tam versus Julia 3. Julia won the first match. That was actually the final of the white belt tournament for the vacated belt when Arisa had to retire. That was a I would dare say great match. It went 28 minutes. I ended up giving like 4 stars. A lot of people all over the place with their rating for it. Rich liked it more than me, which is saying something, because I love Tam and her matches, because they're so full of storytelling. But their second match was in the Grand Prix, where Tam beat Julia in 13 minutes, and it was just a slugfest. You could just feel there's something special about wrestling in a rivalry, where you get to the point where you're just like, oh my god, they hate each other. Look at them kill each other. And that's where that match led to. The first match ended up with back in July ended with Julia slapping on like a Rings of Saturn neck crank on Tam, and Tam passed out, refusing to relinquish, give up the white belt. She'd rather die than lose the white belt. In the second match, Tam hit her Tiger Suplex for the finish and ended up winning that one. This one was a perfect meld of both matches. It had the length. It had a bit of the length on the first one. It didn't go 28 minutes. It went like 19 minutes, but it had the intensity and some of the thought. It had some of the flat out intensity and hatred of the second match, while also tying into storyline stuff. Match in the Stardom where they're just exchanging forearms. They end up were a spot later on in the match where Tam is trying to give her. They're both on the top turnbuckle. They're inside the ring, facing the outside. Tam is trying to give her a suplex off the second rope. Julia is desperate. She's grabbing onto the railing that connects to the post. Just desperate not to get suplex. She back elbows Tam a couple times. Tam just will not fall off until Julia just rails back with the back of her head and just headbutts Tam right in the fucking forehead. Later in the match, you see a gigantic just knot on her forehead between her eyebrows from where she got hit, but she's just out. And they continue wrestling. Just a lot of cool stuff in the match. There's a second rope, code red. There's basically Rainmaker, Black Mass. There are Claymore kicks. There is a Kamagoye, except with a knee. It's a big boot. There's another spot later in the match where Tam's out and she looks like she's done for. Julia goes and gets her up, and then Tam throws her off and grabs both her hands and reels back and hits her with a Kamagoye raw headbutt. The match ends up getting to a point where Julia has the match more or less won. She slaps on this very same Rings of Saturn neck crank that made Tam pass out. You think she's gonna pass out. She fights and fights and fights after like she's about to pass out and gets to the ropes. She mounts one last hurrah after Julia gets her up for her convoluted looking Falcon Arrow / tombstone thing. She kicks it one, gets up, and from there she ran out of gas. Julia ends up laying out Tam with another one of her with another convoluted tombstone Falcon Arrow thing, and ends up getting the win. After the match, Tam and Julia have a respect for each other. I believe Julia says that, somewhere down the line, I want to wrestle you again. And I got to say, I would love to see them wrestle again. I don't know when that will be. I think they need to. I felt like them wrestle each other, 3 times in basically 3 months was a little too much anyway, but they had 3 bangers. And you need time for Julia to fight other people, see what she can do with other people, and then if you go back to it, then that's the time for Tam to be the champion. But it wasn't the right time when she lost at the final to Julia. I believe that the white belt, given what it's been for the last few years, like, I don't want a short title reign with whoever wins the championship. I want them to go out there and wrestle a slew of people and have excellent matches and then drop it off to whoever the next person that's ready. And Julia won it back in July. It's only October. Let her get to year end and go further than that if they need to. So, but as far as their matches, they've had, I think, either five or 6 different 4-star matches. 3 of them were singles and the rest were tags. It's a clear cut, if you're just talking about ring quality or even storyline, like, it's a clear cut match or feud of the year contender for me. So hats off to them, because when Julia first got this big push from the Cinderella tournament up to now, people have doubted her. And I remember the first time I ever saw her wrestle was actually in Ice Ribbon against Maya Yuki, and I thought, she doesn't wrestle a typical Stardom style as far as pacing and build, but when she gets going, it's very, very good. And I thought that it would work in Stardom, and with what they've done with surrounding her with Shuri and Micah and Natsupoi now and Himeka, and this budding rivalry they have as a faction rivalry between them and Queen's Quest and Tam and Julia as a feud, like, I feel like they're success of the year for Stardom 2020. They're just, Julia's panned out in a way that, like, a lot of people didn't want it to happen, but proof's in the pudding. Like, she has a slew of great matches. I wouldn't say that she's one of the top 5 wrestlers in the company this year, but she's somewhere. She's going to be nominated for Wrestler of the Year in the One Nation Radio Awards by the end of the year, barring something crazy happening. She's had a number of matches to justify that. So I'm really happy for her, and I'm really happy for the company, because generally speaking, whenever they give a woman or give an act a push, it ends up working out. It just does. Whether it was Risa Oshiki last year, whether it was Utami when she first came up as a rookie in 2018, they want to push you, tends to work out. It just does. But it's a match that I love. I gave it 4.5. It's just a great match. I suggest y'all check it out. For those that don't watch Stardom. But next match I had that main event, Mayu Iwatani versus Shuri for the red belt. This was just a masterclass of psychology and storytelling and just brutality. There are multiple points in this match where I thought the match needed to legitimately be stopped because Mayu had a concussion and this needs to be stopped. It very much felt like Shuri was, with the UFC background, it very much felt like a Brock Lesnar, like she, Mayu Iwatani versus a Brock Lesnarian type figure. She was getting her ass whooped from pillar to post. Match started with a lot of mat wrestling and grappling, and she was just thoroughly outclassed. And then Shuri went to work by kicking her legs out, taking out her legs, just head kicks galore. And then Mayu, just the ever fighting babyface, kept mounting small hope spots and comebacks throughout until Shuri would just overwhelm her with kicks and just brutality and just knees and just general meanness and oomph, until ultimately they end up on the apron, and Mayu, after getting her ass whooped for like 4 straight minutes, lets out like probably the loudest knee or thigh slap I've ever heard. It reverberated around the arena. The crowd yelled "ooh" off a super kick on the apron. They end up back in the ring, and Shuri just continues to whoop her ass at different points, and just to the point to where just would make kicks and everything, to where you felt like the ref was going to call for a ref stoppage at different points throughout the match. There was also a spot where later on in the match where Shuri has whooped Mayu's ass so much that she is laying up against the bottom rope. Shuri hits the opposite ropes, comes back with a running knee that sends her and Mayu through the bottom rope and middle rope, and then sends Mayu to the floor, and then she comes off the apron with a running knee similar to the Daniel Bryan running knee off of the apron to the floor, and Mayu does a back bump, and I don't know if this is on purpose or not. Knowing her, she's a psychopath, it's probably intentional. She positions herself to where she is, most of her body is on the mat, but the rest of it is on the exposed floor. So she basically hits a back bump, and she bumps her head on the concrete on the floor, and then that sets up the rest of the match where there are just violent head kicks and times where she just like ragdolls and just gets with head kicks, just basically like flips in half, matchboxes herself at times, and you think, like, you know, she actually rolls out the ring like she needs time to buy to, because she's so much in pain, and talking back to the ref and talking to the people that are cornering her at ringside. And it seems like there's real concern for her at times in the match. And then, you know, like right when you think they're about to go to the finish, she hits some move to it for a great escape, for separation, or for a double down. And ultimately, the match ends when she hits a string of offense multiple times. They go back and forth and keeps getting cut off, but ultimately get to a point to where after they finally have kind of matched each other as far as the amount of desperation and selling they've done, she ends up hitting her second moonsault, ends up hitting her second dragon suplex, and gets the win. After the match, they have a lot of respect for each other, and Mayu gives Shuri her time, and Shuri says that she's going to be no longer freelancing. She's going to be a member of Stardom, which is a big deal because Shuri is one of the biggest Joshi freelancers there were. And Stardom has now brought her in, and now it's taken her off the board from a lot of people, which stinks because I loved her in Seedling, doing multiple person tags against Max Voltage and the like. But I'm glad to see her in Stardom. I'm glad to get to see her on a very consistent basis against some high quality wrestlers in singles matches or tag matches and the like. And I think, you know, she sticks around. I think she's going to be a red belt or white belt champion. She's that good. I've heard people say that this was like the best match she's had in years, maybe since some of the stuff she did with Asuka back when she was younger. But this is another match that I thought was great. I gave it 4.5. Just a super main event from a storytelling and brutality standpoint. This was, like I said, this is one of the best shows I've seen this year. Top 8, maybe top 6. But so if y'all care about my opinion or whatever else, I drop the, I think it's like $8.20. Get a Stardom subscription. Check it out. I promise you. I'll drop a link in the description for the high speed match in the opener, just as a give y'all a taste test of what that's about. But the next day they actually had a show in Nagoya, Jungle's hometown. They put her in the semi-main event. She had a tagging with Mayu against Oedo Tai, not Konami. It was I think it was B. Priestley and Natsuko Tora. Unfortunate shit happened, man. Natsuko, like the first minute of the match, drops a leg drop right across Jungle's knee and tore her ACL. Jungle ended up wrestling the next 10 minutes of that match, fighting from underneath, getting that knee that just got ripped up, worked over. There's actually a spot later in the match where Natsuko comes off the top rope with a leg drop right onto that fucking knee, and I actually heard the news of what happened to her beforehand, so I was very, very watching that match was just like very, very unsettling to watch her, knowing what happened to her, and watching her roll out the ring early in the match, and communicating between the ringside people in the corner to the ref, explaining, you know, that there's something wrong, but she's still fighting, and she's trying to lift people and trying to run, and she's trying so hard she just can't really do it. And this is a person that's been battling through a separated shoulder, and came back early from last year's Grand Prix. Like, she separated her shoulder and came back within like a month, and that shoulder's been taped up ever since, you know, the end of 2019 going to this year. And where it came out that, you know, she got the word she tore ACL, and while she was there, she also got that bum shoulder looked at, and she's going to have to get surgery on that as well, too, while she's out. Like, she's been basically, you know, held together with duct tape for about a year. So she's going to be gone for, you know, a while now. And clearly they were setting up something with Konami and her. Maybe it was at the year-end climax. Maybe it was at the 10-year anniversary. After this match, Jungle goes back to Stars. Mayu asked her to come back, so she's back in Stars. And Konami's in Oedo Tai. She was in an earlier match, and she's new gear change. She's dressed in all black. She looks like a damn Mortal Kombat ninja. She's putting on vicious holes on people and killing people. And she's a killer, so hopefully she's the new unofficial leader of Oedo Tai. Instantly gives Oedo Tai some more credibility since, BS came back. So hopefully they can finally have some quality matches as opposed to just that bullshit they've been doing for the past 6 months. So her B and Konami are actually a tag team faction in the tag league. We'll get to that next week, but interesting twist this week or this year. They're having 5 teams in each block, and instead of fighting each other and the winner with most points wins the block, A block, all the contestants A block wrestle every team in B block. Nobody wrestles the people in their own block. I don't know how they're determining a tie system or whatever else. We'll find out. The shows aren't fully up yet from this past weekend, but we'll get to it in whenever we figure that out, and we'll get the shows. I'll give you the information on next week's show. From this point, I'll move on to the Wednesday shows. Even though Rich isn't here, I'll still continue with the tradition of having Dynamite go first. So the show ends up starting with Brian Cage versus Will Hobbs, a classic Hoss battle. These guys, I wouldn't say classic, a classic matchup of those body types, but in a modern twist. They proceeded to go out there and, like most hosses, go out there and slap some meat. It was a great match of just guys beating each other's asses. But with Cage, you already know it's modernized, and it was a really fun match. Ultimately, it didn't go very long. Obviously, it's Will Hobbs. He's got to establish himself, but Cage is the bigger star, so the right person won. Hobbs seemingly has the match won. He goes to the top to hit a frog splash, but there's no water in the pool. Cage then lifts him up and hits the drill claw for the win. Like I said, short, sweet, very fun match while it lasted. But I cannot wait until that trios match they eventually have between Team Taz and Archer versus Darby and Moxley and Hobbs. I think it's going to end up being one of the better matches of AEW this year. So I'm definitely excited for whenever that comes around. After the match, Team Taz ends up coming down to the ring. Starks and Taz, I think Taz was actually on commentary, and he just walked down, and they basically gave him a proposition: get down or lay down. Either join Team Taz, as I see some potential in you, or we finna whoop yo ass. Ultimately, Darby ended up coming in with the skateboard, making the save and clearing them out. So that even adds more to it for this eventual trios match we're going to get. I think it's going to be great. So we end up getting some, because it's a 30th anniversary show for Jericho's career, so we end up getting some cameos saying, well wishes for Jericho. We end up getting some from Slash and Dennis Miller and Bully Ray and his dad, Ted Irvine, and the ace of the universe, Hiroshi Tanahashi, wishes him the best. I popped. I was so happy to see Ace on American television. I think we all made the same joke about the Forbidden Door now being opened, and jokes about Harold May not being with New Japan anymore, or being let go or stepping down. So a lot of people are kind of getting themselves geeked up for this one, and I don't know if it happens, cool, but I'm not getting my hopes up. So we end up getting a video promo from Archer. He said that him and Moxie tore down the house in a Texas death match earlier in the year in New Japan. Obviously, I think it was Wrestle Kingdom Night 1 or Night 2. I can't remember. I think it was Night 2. Anyway, he said he's learned a lot since he's promised that he's going to beat Moxie for the belt. We end up getting next match the 20 minutes or the brush of, I forgot what the hell FTR is calling it. I think it's the 20 minutes of destiny or something like that. 20-minute time limit tag match. It's FTR versus Hybrid 2, Jack Evans and Angelico. Angelico comes down to the ring. He's even more douchier than normal. He looks he looks like a bottle of Axe body spray. Anyway, the finish of the match is, I can't remember which one is which. I think it was Bald. Bald ends up hitting Evans with a Tiger Driver for a near fall, and then Bald ends up hitting a superplex on Evans, and then Hare ends up hitting a top rope splash for the pin. The Young Bucks end up, after the match, super kicking a camera operator backstage. The best friends end up entering, coming down to the ring, actually wearing weenie shirts. They end up brawling and end up sending FTR on the run, and they said they're getting a tag title shot next week after they've had their back and forth for a few weeks. So they've been putting this match over, so should be very good for the anniversary show. I would have liked it if they had, had a no DQ match to kind of help out with Chuck Taylor and his proclivity to do stupid things with his body, but I think they still have a good match, especially if FTR sticks with having their match. Like, I like their match when they try to do their match plus open it up to do stuff with, like the Lucha Bros or with Hangman and Kenny. It just hasn't worked. Or I want to say haven't worked, but it has been underwhelming compared to expectations. So I think if they just have their match, they can have their nice, 3.5, 3 3/4, maybe even on a good day have 4 stars. But we'll see. It's going to be a good match. I have no doubt about that. Next, we end up getting a MJF video tribute for Jericho. MJF says he's proud of Jericho and he's been inspired by him. Shaq was on this one. Gene Simmons, Don Callis, Lars Ulrich, DDP. So we end up getting the... and then after that, we end up getting the NXT, the TNT title match, a dog collar match. And I gotta say, I watched this after watching the Stardom show. So I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay, this stuff's good. It's fine. Then I get to this match, and I just have no interest whatsoever. I'm just in my phone. I can't will myself to pull myself away from my phone, and I don't hear the crowd going nuts for it. So I'm just like, all right, whatever. So I said, you know what, that's not fair, or that's not right. I review these shows. I want to give people an honest critique. I can't just fake it. So I actually rewatched the show about an hour before I started recording this, and I gotta say, I do not know what people like so much about this match. I'm sorry. The stuff with John Silver at the beginning, it serves no purpose whatsoever except for the sleight of hand diversion tactic to get you to not pay attention to Cody going to rub a razor blade against his forehead for the 20th time in the last 18 months. But yeah, so you have that. You have Silver also bladed at early in the match too, so it's just like, oh god. So he's a Singh brother. He's basically a Singh brother. And later on in the match, you get the Alex Reynolds spot with he comes in. He ends up getting a spine buster from Arn Anderson. They do the Arn Anderson gets injured spot as well, or hurt, harmed. Look, I gotta say, they did a lot of bumping in this match to where they either unintentionally or unintentionally either unintentionally or intentionally bumped on this chain, and that shit has to suck, and I give them a lot of respect and props to their toughness. Absolutely. You'll never see me say anything bad about Cody's toughness or question or whatsoever. He's a pro wrestler. He took those lashes, all that, right? And Brody, you know, we've seen Brody wrestle for years now. We know he's a psychopath, but some of the strike exchanges in this match and some of the ideas they came up with felt so uninspired. That might be the word, because I just didn't feel it. I didn't feel like the actual brutality of this match compared to the amount of blood they were leaking. It was just a disconnect for me. Like, they were doing the, you know, punching each other with the chain stuff over and over and over, and I'm just like, in this match, they did a couple of choke spots with the chain, but I felt like if those two just went out there and had a match without the chain, it would have been 1,000 times better in this match. I feel like this is one of in the bottom half of Cody matches this year. I think the cage match with Warlow kicks this match's ass. I think the match with Kingston kicks this match's ass. I think the match with Mark Quinn is way better than this match. The second match with Darby this year with the where they made Darby like a schmuck because he got pinned by a tilt. I like that match better than this. I like the Archer match better. It's just, I probably like the MJF match, and I had tons of problem with the storytelling in that match, but I didn't have the disconnect of there's a bunch of violence going on, and I take that back because the toe spot, the sock, and the bleeding by MJF, that was also a disconnect, but at least I felt the visceral hate between those two. This was just like, they hitting each other, they do a spot here and there. I also didn't like the fact that they came back from commercial break and showed us a replay of the package power driver spot. It's like, that's the biggest spot on the match. Why the fuck would that be in the commercial break? It's just, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But yeah, just a lot of blood, very slow, a lot of the same stuff over and over and over. And the match ends where Cody ends up wrapping the chain around Brody's head 3 times. Just to take some starch out of him, and then he ends up hitting the crossroads for the win. So he's the TNT championship, or TNT champion again. And I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know what set of challengers he has left. If he's going to move on to, you know, I don't know, let's say a Hangman or a Adam Page in the aftermath of the of some of the people they're going to pull up for this AEW title tournament. We'll see. You know, there's still Lucha Bros he can wrestle. He can wrestle Trent. He can wrestle Colt Cabana as a play off of this thing with Brody. Of course, you know, there's a great chance that he's going to wrestle his homeboy QT Marshall. You know, he's not friends with QT Marshall, did not eventually have a match with him, right? You know, Rich always talks about he will be replacing people for new people to turn on him like a constant rotation for the next, you know, half a decade. So that's definitely at play. But yeah, we'll see what he does from here. You know, maybe this is the beginning of a darker Cody because, you know, the hair and the blood and the quote-unquote depths he had to, you know, dig deep within his soul, to the dark things he had to pull up to put away. I almost said the Taskmaster, but Brody Lee, you know, it takes a lot to be someone as evil as, you know, a parody of Vince McMahon. So this could be the way. This could be the way. After the match, he ends up saying that people thought that because he changed his hair, he should change his attitude and turn on the fans. And instead, he says he's sticking with the people, and it's not pandering, and it's his life's work, and that the people are the ones that have been around with him and behind him since he was a teenager. So he said that he's going to defend the title next week on the anniversary show, and he's looking for a challenger. And then all of a sudden, out comes Orange Cassidy. He puts up the half thumb, so that's on for next week. So we'll see where this goes. This could be where the turn comes. I wonder. Obviously, he's teasing us with what's next for him. But Orange Cassidy versus Cody. I would say it's I don't know what it's gonna look like. It could be good. It could be good. It could be, because Cody's a very giving person in the ring, and with the right person, Orange Cassidy, his matches get over. Obviously, he hasn't been as good lately as back when we had the crowds or the first Jericho match, but he's still somebody that I still believe in for now. We'll see. But yeah, just that match in general just did nothing for me, and I am quite frankly shocked at what I saw as far as people's response to the match. Like, a lot of people think this is one of the very best matches in AEW this year, and I vehemently disagree. I don't even think it's one of the very best Cody matches. I think it's just, I thought it was just there for a long time. It involved blading and bleeding and sleight of hand shit that was obvious. Like, if you've seen any 80s match with the stereotypical stuff in it, it fits right in place with all that shit that's been overdone to death and it's cliche. That just wasn't for me. Was not for me. But I know one thing. It damn sure was not whatever you think of it. It damn sure, whether you loved it or not, like, if you think that it's on par with Finn Balor versus Kyle O'Reilly, Dave Meltzer, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. I just don't. Anyway, we end up getting announcements for more people in the AEW World Title Tournament. We get Wardlow, Colt Cabana, and Hangman Page has been added to the tournament. How about that? Who could have foreseen such a thing? Anyway, we get Alex Marvez interviewing Omega. He asked how he felt about Hangman being in the tournament. Actually, he asked him how he feels about being in the tournament. Omega mentions, without saying the G1, how he won the G1 on his first try. And then he starts acting funny when they bring up Hangman and the mention of Hangman actually being in the tournament as well. He seemed bothered. We'll see where that goes. After that, we end up getting Big Swole versus, as Jim Ross described her, one of the best female competitors in the world, Serena Deeb. It was a match. Swole ended up hitting a headbutt to the chest and ended up hitting her rolling elbow spot for the win. Then we ended up getting a Moxley pre-tape promo from a bar. He said next week is the anniversary show, but he doesn't have time to celebrate. He said he knows somebody, or sometime his ticket will be up, and maybe it'll be Archer. And he said last time they fought, Moxley barely left Tokyo with his teeth in his head, and he said it's a coin flip whether or not he keeps the title, and Archer is chasing him halfway around the world to finish the job. Good promo. The Cody promo was also good. I'm underselling it. It was a good promo as well, but just like that match, no, poo-poo. Stank. So, we end up getting another round of celebrity messages from Jericho, from Lance Storm, Kevin Smith, I almost said Kevin Storm, Eli Roth, Gabriel Iglesias, Chavo, Ultimo Dragon, and Paul Stanley. And then we end up getting Jericho and Hager versus Serpentico and Luther. Last week I said it, or 2 weeks ago I said it to Rich. Jericho is on a knife's edge. He is teetering and tight-roping between being washed. And this is another match where he seems like he's falling over that goddamn cliff. Hopefully he holds on a little bit longer, or longer than this, or refocuses himself, or figures out what he's going to do with himself, because him and Luther won it. Not for the main event. No sirree, Bob. This, obviously Jericho's the biggest star in AEW, but I don't see how you have a title match. I mean, it's Jericho's anniversary show, so I understand why he's the main event. But I was going to say, like, if this wasn't the anniversary show, no way this is a main event. They put the stinking ass dog collar match on last and go home on that. Especially when you have the Orange Cassidy reveal at the end for the next week's title match. That's far more important than that tag match between Serpentico, Luther, Jericho, and Hager. Anyway, Jericho gets the win, and he goes to celebrate. He wants to give almost like a sign off to the crowd and thanking them and that sort of thing. While obviously being a heel, taking credit for everything because he's Jericho. And then out comes MJF, and he says, he interrupts, and he says he has something special for Jericho. And he ends up bringing out an actual clown, like Bozo, homie, don't play that, an actual clown, and a wrapped present that he rips open, and he's a picture of MJF. If I remember correctly, I believe MJF or Jericho gets it, and I think he bashes it over the clown's head. I'm not sure, but either way, he grabs the mic and says, "I don't like clowns." Him and Jericho, MJF and Jericho, lock eyes and start looking real intense, and then they play it off like it's all cool, and they laugh and they say, "Yo, thanks, man, whatever, and good night, everybody." And eventually, one of them is going to turn to the other, and that's what's going to be the thing for the pay-per-view. And hopefully we end up getting MJF versus Guevara on the way to it. I think that'd be a great match to have on Dynamite on the way. And we'll see what they do with the future of that. I really like where they're going. I like the tag match they have set up for next week between Trent and Chucky versus FTR. I believe they're going to start up the tag team tournament, or not tag team tournament, the AEW tag or the AEW World Title tournament or contendership tournament. You're going to get a Moxley versus Archer, I believe, next week. So yeah, a lot of things going on. Things to look forward to. Building anticipation, typical AEW, typical well booked stuff. The only problem and concerns I ever have with AEW is the execution of their ideas. They have a lot of good ideas. Sometimes they have too many, but this was a solid show, even though the wrestling wasn't up to snuff. But the stuff around it and the building of the future towards the anniversary show and potentially even as far as the Full Gear stuff is coming into picture, and I think it's going to be a fun next few weeks. As far as NXT goes, the first match, first thing on the card is Kushida versus Tommaso Ciampa. They had a, I guess, online dispute backstage before their match. They're both heated. They just start going at it, and they had a really good match. It went short, but I hope they have a match in the future. Just Kushida, aggressive, still displaying just technical wizardry. Ciampa finding ways to get away from that dude, putting his hands on his arm to work over his arm, and then eventually Kushida just wears him down and actually gets the hoverboard lock. And after, I think it's probably after like 8 minutes, 9 minutes, something like that, he has the Kushida board lock. My God, he has the hoverboard lock, lashed onto Ciampa, and Ciampa's fucked. He's dead to rights. He's about to tap out or whatever, or get his arm broken. And then out of nowhere, Velveteen Dream with a purple cast on comes off the top turnbuckle. Kushida sees it, gets up and gets out the way. The cast ends up hitting Ciampa, and the ref calls the match a DQ for Ciampa's actually the winner. And then Kushida basically runs off Velveteen Dream, and Velveteen Dream basically after getting sent packing, he basically flops around like a fish before getting sent off to the back, and that guy's still in our lives as wrestling fans. It's unfortunate, but they're still doing this, and I said this on LLP Radio's NXT review with Imp. It seems to me with guys like Austin Theory and Velveteen Dream right now, even though they shouldn't be on TV, they're putting them on TV, and they're trying to split the half by having them on TV, and they do jobs or get embarrassed. And gotta tell you, just take them the fuck off TV. It does not matter if they're doing jobs, if they shouldn't be on your TV. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they win or lose. They shouldn't be on your TV. Period. So, but I do believe that they're going to circle back around to Ciampa not taking that near beating or being dead to rights lightly against Kushida, and they're going to have a rematch. And based off of what they did in the short amount of time they had, like my appetite has been whet. Like, I want to see them throw down for an extended period of time. That'll be a great match. So after that, we end up getting a promo from Ember Moon. She comes down to the ring. She makes jokes about, they let me get on the microphone, and then proceeds to cut a mediocre promo. Now, from the stuff I saw online, and people thought it was this horrendous promo, and I thought it was just a mediocre run-of-the-mill promo. She said that while she's been in isolation for 14 months, and she's back, and she says that she rode her motorcycle for miles and miles to find some clarity, and what she found was Ember's Law, and she said that no one will walk over her. That's Ember's Law, and she's going to do whatever she wants to do because she's Ember Moon, damn it. And she said that Mama wants that gold, and then Io Shirai came to the ring and got face-to-face with Ember. And before Io could speak, Rhea came down to tell Ember to get him back in the line because she wants her title rematch. She wants her belt back. And she did that from the ramp. And then as she did that from the ramp, out come Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai to jump Rhea. And they're whooping her ass. And then Ember comes up the ramp and helps evens the odds. Geeks assemble, and then Regal comes out and says, you guys are the main event in the tag match. The baby faces Ember and Rhea versus the heels Raquel and Ember, the main event of the show. So as they come back from the commercial break, they actually end up asking Io, how come you didn't get involved with the Rhea thing? And Io said, Ember Moon, not my problem. Raquel Gonzalez, not my problem. Basically, all these geeks, not my problem. She touches the belt, looks at the belt that's on her shoulder, and she says, this is my problem. Which, goes a long way. Like, that's their thing. Y'all go battle out to come fight, the Queen Io. So, we end up getting a video package from earlier in the day. Is Drake Maverick walking to Full Sail Arena. They ask him about his tag match tonight with Killian Dane against Everrise. He says he's excited. He says that he's been texting with Killian Dane all week with a bunch of ideas for moves and music and different things. Then Dane comes into the screenshot and says, hey, did you get us booked for a tag match together against Everrise? I don't want to tag with you. Why would you do that? Then after you already know I hate this. Y'all know I hate this. They're they going to do this gag or just a gigantic like plot hole where after Drake said that he's been talking to Killian Dane all throughout the week or the weekend, he then asks, "Hey, I need to get your number. I've been messaging you," which is like, that makes no sense, but whatever. Dane walks away pissed off because he's just a miserable person, and basically Drake is just annoying him. He's a geek. So we end up getting a backstage promo from Adam Cole, and he's wearing shades to cover his black eye. He's apparently a beaten spouse, and he addresses the supposed attack from Rich Holland. He ends up saying he has broken ribs and that Holland's a dead man for attacking him. And so in the middle of that promo, he takes off the glasses to show that he got his ass whooped by this dude, and he says he's a dead man. Okay. Then we end up getting Drake Maverick and Killian Dane versus Everrise. The match is basically they beat the piss out of Drake Maverick until Killian Dane gets insulted. He clears house. He drags Drake's half-beaten carcass to the corner, tags himself in, clears out. He's about to give one of those geeks a Vader bomb or something like that, and then he ends up getting a blind tag from Drake Maverick. Drake Maverick gets the win. Before that happened, they came down to the ring. They were playing this goofy, whistly, happy, almost like Blue's Clues ass music, and Killian Dane just hates his life, and Drake is having a ball. He's dancing, he's whistling, but back to the end of the match, he reaches out for some type of attaboy from Killian Dane, and Killian Dane just reaches back and decks him, and then picks up his carcass and hauls it over his shoulder and takes him to the back. It's just, you know where they're building to. They're an odd couple tag team where there's Rock and Sock Connection like thing where it's a geek and a dude that wants nothing to do with him, and eventually he, begrudgingly comes to respect and like the dude, and they'll become friends or whatever. I don't care. Like, I feel like this works better if they don't make Drake Maverick a geek, but we're past that. We're past that. He's a geek. It is what it is. So we end up getting this vignette profile on Toni Storm, and she answers a bunch of questions about where she's been. She says that she's been away. It was titled that she was in Cancun, and she's been training on the beach, doing sprints on the beach and that sort of thing, training herself, saying that she's time for her to come back to NXT. Mentioned how she had beat Io at the Evolution pay-per-view in 2018 in the Mae Young Classic final. And, she's back. So we'll see what they do with her. She's one of the more talented women wrestlers in the world. And she has all the look and stuff and marketability that Dave Meltzer and Vince McMahon would want. We'll see what they do with her. It's a loaded class right now, but I do enjoy the fact that they, after losing Mercedes and Mia and Bianca and Shayna, they've, brought back Ember and are bringing Toni Storm in now to be on domestic NXT. So, their best, their strongest, most stable division, keeps strong trucking. So I'm happy for that. So then we end up getting a Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae segment where they're in their neighborhood walking the dog, and they're talking about how much NXT TakeOver sucked because they got their asses kicked by two champions, Damian Priest and Io Shirai. And they head back to the house, and they see a big screen TV sitting at their front doorstep. And Johnny's like, "Who's that from?" And Candice reads the card and says, "It's from Indy Hartwell." And Johnny goes, "Indy Hartwell? Pfft, who has she ever beat?" Like, get this fucking geek out of here. And then reads the rest of the note and says that that they know about what happened between them and Tegan and how Tegan broke their TV. So she says something along the lines, if I have this lying around, or consider this, your new TV. And then as soon as Johnny heard that, he goes, Andy Hartwell, I always liked her. Big future. Just such a fake phony. I love it. It's the only thing I like about Johnny Gargano at this point with this character. Like, he's a fucking loser. He's a geek. His heat is that he keeps, like, stealing shine from his wife. Like, if you had told me this how it was going to turn out for Johnny Gargano back in 2018, I wouldn't have fucking believed it. But whatever. Like, he gets his moments when he can. But, and he's still a great wrestler, but it is definitely not the same. It is very similar to the Daniel Bryan thing when they turned him heel after he came back. It's like, yes, he can do anything because he's that talented. But is what they're about to do better than what they could have been doing or what they had done before? And the answer is no. It just is what it is. But they end up taking the video to the back, or into the house. So then we end up getting Austin Theory and Leon Ruff for a match. They both talk shit to each other about how they're both losers. Austin Theory is like incredulous that he's called a loser, even though like all he has done since coming back is lose, because he's on this secret punishment thing, even though he's still on TV. The match starts. You end up getting Leon Ruff doing some impressive flipping and evasive maneuvering around Austin Theory. And Leon Ruff, by the way, is recently signed. He is in the latest crop of PC talent, so good for him. Congratulations to him. He's one of the best jobbers in the world, a great enhancement guy, one of the best big bumpers you can find right now. Just I don't know if I believe in signing enhancement talent, but given the stuff that he did in this match before he got squashed, that dude ain't just enhancement talent. If they want to figure out how to do something with a dude with that physique, they could do it. He has obviously some tools and some skills. So, maybe there's more. We'll see. I doubt it though. But he's doing a bunch of flippy, flyy, evasive stuff, and then until eventually the fly swatter hits the fly, and Theory ends up hitting the ATL on him, and then he begins to talk some shit, and then Loomis comes out, and then they proceed to have a match that went on forever and ever. And I gotta tell you, it's not a good look for Dexter Loomis to go out there for God knows how long with Austin Theory, and he's less impressive in beating the shit out of Austin Theory than Leon Ruff is getting squashed by Austin Theory. Go fucking figure. But they had a long, slow, boring match, and it was a match, and Loomis won at the end with his front face choke. So congrats for that. After that, we end up getting Cameron Grimes runs in and hits the cave-in right on Loomis and celebrates because, he's always going to the moon. And we end up getting a epilogue of the Prime Target video package promo stuff for O'Reilly versus Finn Balor. They talk about the wares of their fantastic match from NXT TakeOver in that main event. They mentioned that Finn Balor has broken his jaw. They mentioned the injuries that they both sustained in the match. I believe the word is that Finn Balor is going into surgery either soon or today or this week, sometime in the near future, for his jaw. So we'll see what that means for, the title, for him, time off. I don't know, but they put each other over like crazy, and deservedly so, because they went on there and had a kick-ass match. I love that match. I can't wait to rewatch that match. But then but this was a huge thing for O'Reilly. This was to make O'Reilly a player after having a great title match that, even though it came seemingly out of nowhere, between him winning or putting away so many people in that Gauntlet Eliminator match and going toe-to-toe with Balor for however long that match was, he's on deck. So we end up getting, after that, Rich Holland versus Danny Burch. Burch gets squashed. Rich Holland is all over him. And then he's all over him after the match. And then Oney Lorcan comes down, and Oney Lorcan starts getting his ass whooped. He mounts two different comebacks. One, he ends up hitting a dive. And after the dive, Holland just basically gets right back up and goes back to terrorizing Oney. The refs start breaking it up, and then on the outside, and Oney goes for another dive, and this time just disaster struck because of positioning or whatever, and just bad sheer luck. He lands on top of Holland, and Holland basically gets his leg rolled up basically gets rolled up. He ends up like his ankle just like collapses from underneath itself. I don't know the prognosis or diagnosis of his injury, but it looked bad. They end up carting him off in a air cast and a stretcher. So, given what happened this weekend with Dak Prescott, like, just a lot of bad luck out there. Like, these are dangerous things people are doing, for our entertainment. So I just hope, we'll wish him a speedy recovery. It's unfortunate because, like, this is a dude that, I remember that match he had earlier in the year, a couple months ago, with in that triple threat match for the ladder match qualifier, when it was Damian Priest and him, and I think it was Oney Lorcan, and he was just a great powerhouse in base. And the thing happened with Johnny where he dropped him on his head. That was unfortunate, and it was clearly somebody they were going to do something with. So, he has a look. There's no denying that. He clearly has something to him. Like, obviously he was protected as far as things he did, but like as a power guy, he looked impressive in that match I just mentioned, that triple threat match. And he had some things going for him in that Johnny match till he dropped Johnny in his head, but just unfortunate. Next, we end up going back to the Gargano household, and Johnny has installed the TV, and he's looking at it, and he says, interesting. I thought he was going to make some joke about the pixels, because he's basically a middle-aged dad now on the show, but he calls attention to Candice and points out, did you realize in the title qualifying or title contendership battle royal how many times Indy saved you? There's actually a thumb drive showing the match that's highlighting all the times Indy saved you, and Candice says, no, I didn't notice it, but I'm starting to like this Indy Hartwell. And Johnny says, so do me too. Big future. So we'll see what that leads to. I'm slightly intrigued, to be honest with you. Next segment, you end up getting Timothy Thatcher doing Thatch Can again. He talks about how life will grind you down until you quit, and he talks about how he has to be adaptable because that will not happen to him, and I think he's now picking or looking for a new target. So we'll see what's next for the Thatch Man. Yes, I called him the Thatch Man. I regret that instantly. But we go back to the arena, and that's when they show Rich Holland getting stretchered off. And hopefully he'll be okay. So then after that, we get Chauncey Blackheart versus Xia Li. Short match. Xia throws some kicks, gets cut off, and then Chauncey ends up hitting her senton off top rope for the win. After the match, Boa comes down to the ring in a suit, and he hands a letter to, it's in Chinese, or I guess Mandarin, I don't know, and hands it to Zaya. She reads it and immediately becomes concerned and walks off with him going right back up the ramp. I don't know how this plays into the bad loser thing that Zaya was doing the last few matches with Casey and Caden, but we'll see if that ties into it or not. I ended up saying to Imp on the LLP show last weekend, I hope this doesn't turn into allusions to organized crime, because they tend to do that on NXT. It's always some Sons of Anarchy shit, or in the case of Legado del Fantasma, obviously those are cartel allusions they're making. I don't necessarily feel the need for a triad gimmick right now. I don't. But we'll see where that leads us. So anyway, we're going to get the main event. Rhea Ripley and Ember Moon versus Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. And I got to say, this was a very fun match. And it was, I think the thing that I liked about it as much is that Ember Moon looks to still be very much the NXT Ember Moon we all, enjoyed on takeovers. She was crisp. She still had her burst. She was sudden. Her striking was on point. It was all there. This is a person that, I don't know if it was the end of last year or the beginning of this year, but she did that interview with Booker T, and she broke down talking about, her insecurities and concerns about her future. She thought her career may be potentially over, and she's back here, and she looked great. So I'm really happy for her, because you never know with Achilles. I don't want to make any comparisons to real life sports, but like that injury is a real career ender, especially for somebody that has bounced like her. Like that ended Shaq's career, that ended Isaiah Thomas' career, that completely ended Kobe Bryant's prime Achilles tear. So, and even not even necessarily someone that's in advanced age, like Wesley Matthews in the NBA, like his career has never been the same since he tore his Achilles. So, it's a serious thing, but she looked damn good. So I'm happy for her. A lot of it was paired up. It was the Giants versus each other. It was Rhea versus Raquel, which I'm sure they had a blast because they're actually pretty good friends if you look at their social media over the years. And you had Dakota in there with Ember, and it was very, very good. Like two top-notch wrestlers going at it. And at the end, you end up getting Ember hitting the Eclipse for the win, and she celebrates with Rhea. I think they both raise each other's hands. I think there's a handshake at first of begrudging respect. Right? They both want the same things. And then eventually they raise their hands and show goes dark. This is a show that I really enjoyed, the fact that it seems that they're, for now, it can always change, but they're going back to long form storytelling as opposed to hot shotting shit left and right. They're bringing in new players. NXT, even with the hot shotting, they were always good at coming up with the next destination, the next reality and table setting. They were blowing through so much stuff so fast because they have to get Keith Lee from NXT US or North American champion to double champion to just the NXT champion in a span of 3 fucking weeks, or doing because the title is vacated, they have to do a fatal 4-way Iron Man match that's an hour long that leads to another title match the next fucking week. So, with the whodunit stuff of who paid Rich Holland to beat up Adam Cole, with the Indy Hartwell Gargano stuff, with the beginning of the Loomis versus Cameron Grimes thing, even though I think I'd rather see Grimes doing something better, I'm okay with it. Like, I feel like I feel like they're giving their story some time to breathe now. And I don't know if that's a byproduct of the fact that, like, this takeover's out the way and the next takeover's not till I think December, but it's a much needed change of pace. Like, they're burning through way too much stuff. And stuff starting not to feel special. But between the Capitol Wrestling building, the PC being revamped, and, you know, that takeover we got over last weekend, and this, like, it feels a little bit more like the NXT that, you know, Triple H told us nothing was going to change before it absolutely did fucking change. So I'm happy that teams, they're going to kind of wean us off of that hotshot shit. So they have the talent to just have good matches without trying to put stakes on every fucking thing. So I welcome it. Anyway, that's the end of the show. Be sure to rate us on whatever app you're using to listen to this. Tell the folks about the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Be sure to visit ProWrestlingTees.com/Social Suplex and pick up some official Social Suplex Podcast Network merchandise. Be sure to check out the other shows on the network. On Sundays, we have this show. Seems to be Mondays a lot now. One Nation Radio. On Tuesdays, we have Keepin It Strong Style. On Wednesdays, we have the Ricky Clive Wrestling Podcast. On every other Wednesday, we have Grown Men Watch the Shit. On Thursdays, we have the Grave Consequences Podcast. On Fridays, we have 8-Bit Suplex. And on Saturday, we have All Things Elite. Again, before I get out of here, I just want to give another congratulations to Rich and Catherine. I had a fantastic time at their wedding, and I just want to tell them I love them both. All right, y'all. Later.